The clock struck 8 p.m. when a black soldier, David Carter, walked into a quiet roadside bar, hoping to enjoy an uneventful evening. The serenity, however, was shattered by the entrance of a rowdy group of bikers, their laughter loud and their demeanor confrontational. What they didn't know was that the man before them wasn't just armed with military precision, but also a resolve and patience forged in the crucible of years of service. What unfolded that night became a lesson not just for the bikers, but for everyone present. David had returned home only a week prior after completing multiple tours overseas. Tonight, he sought solitude and a chance to let his thoughts drift away from the chaos of the battlefield. Parking his old pickup truck outside Maggie's Tap Room, a humble establishment off Highway 64 in North Carolina, David stepped inside, drawn to its warm ambience and small-town charm. The creaky wooden door swung open as David entered, and he paused momentarily, letting his eyes adjust to the dim lighting. The atmosphere was lively yet inviting. Locals gathered around the pool table. Some laughed at the bar, and others sat quietly, nursing drinks. David chose a secluded table by the window, where the soft glow of neon signs barely reached. He ordered water. Uninterested in alcohol, he sought peace, not revelry. He was midway through his drink when the tranquility was interrupted. The door slammed open, and 6 men strode in, their heavy boots announcing their arrival. Dressed in black leather jackets adorned with patches and symbols, they commanded attention. Their leader, Logan Pierce, a burly man with a grizzled beard and a sly grin, surveyed the room with a sense of ownership. Spotting David, his grin widened. "Well, look who we have here," Logan said, his voice loud enough to carry across the bar. "A soldier boy playing dress-up?" His companions snickered, their laughter grating and mean-spirited. David didn't flinch. Years of military discipline had taught him composure. He kept his focus on his glass. But the room grew quieter. Patrons shifted uncomfortably. Aware of the growing tension, Logan sauntered closer, flanked by his crew. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or do you need permission from your commanding officer to speak?" David remained silent, his steady gaze meeting Logan's mocking eyes. "Say something, soldier boy," another biker sneered, his tattoos rippling as he gestured exaggeratedly. The taunts escalated, but David stayed calm. He knew men like Logan thrived on provoking a reaction. Instead of retaliating, he leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. It wasn't the first time he'd faced hostility, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. But words weren't weapons that could wound him deeply. He'd survived far worse. Logan, frustrated by David's lack of response, leaned closer, his voice dripping with derision. "What kind of soldier wears sneakers like those? Did you buy that uniform at a thrift store?" His hand slammed onto the table, making the glass rattle. David finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "I don't need to prove myself to you or anyone else. Walk away while you can." The room seemed to hold its breath. Logan's grin faltered for a moment, but his pride wouldn't allow him to back down. He reached out to grab David's collar, but in an instant, David's military training took over. With a swift, precise motion, he twisted Logan's arm, pinning him against the table. The bar fell silent as Logan let out a grunt of pain. "Enough," David said, his voice steady but commanding. "I didn't want this, but you left me no choice. Let's end it here." Logan's gang hesitated, stunned by how quickly their leader had been subdued. One of them took a step forward, but David's unyielding gaze stopped him in his tracks. "Stay back," David warned. Logan's struggle ceased as he realized he couldn't break free. David released him, and Logan stumbled back, clutching his arm. Humiliated, he glared at David. "You'll regret this," he growled before storming out of the bar with his crew in tow. The tension in the room eased as the bikers left. Conversations resumed, though quieter than before. The bartender approached David, a mixture of gratitude and admiration on his face. "Thank you," he said softly. "Not many people could have handled that the way you did." David nodded, his demeanor humble. "I just wanted to keep the peace." As the night wore on, the patrons who had witnessed the confrontation began to see David in a new light. Conversations shifted from whispers of doubt to murmurs of respect. An older man in a faded military jacket approached David, introducing himself as Charles Walker, a veteran who had served in Vietnam. "I know a real soldier when I see one," Charles said, his voice steady with conviction. "You've done more than hold your ground tonight. You've shown what true strength looks like." The following days brought unexpected outcomes. Bill, one of Logan's crew members, showed up at David's home, apologizing for his part in the confrontation. "I let Logan drag me into something I knew was wrong," Bill admitted. "I'm sorry. I want to do better." David accepted the apology, but his words carried a challenge. Change isn't just words. Show me you mean it. Months later, the bar organized a ceremony to honor local veterans. David was invited as a guest of honor. Standing on the small stage, he looked out at the community that had once been skeptical of him, but now stood united in respect. As he accepted the recognition, he spoke humbly. "This isn't just about me," David said. "It's about recognizing the sacrifices of all who serve. And it's about building bridges where walls once stood." The applause that followed wasn't just for his words, but for the example he had set. David's patience and dignity had not only defused a volatile situation, but had also inspired a community to rethink its values. It was a reminder that true strength lies not in retaliation, but in the courage to rise above. In the months following the ceremony, David's life gradually found a new rhythm. His story began to ripple outward, spreading beyond the confines of Maggie's taproom. A local journalist, inspired by the accounts of that fateful night, wrote an article titled "The Quiet Hero of Highway 64, which gained traction online. The piece described David's poise and the profound impact of his actions, bringing attention to his story in surrounding towns. With this new attention came invitations for David to speak at community centers, schools, and veteran organizations. Reluctant at first, David eventually agreed, understanding the importance of using his experience to inspire others. Standing before these audiences, he shared his journey, not just of the confrontation at the bar but of his military service, the challenges he faced as a black soldier, and the lessons he learned about resilience and integrity. One of the most impactful moments came when he spoke to a group of high school students. Among them was a young boy named Alex, who approached David after the talk, his eyes filled with admiration. "Mr. Carter," Alex said, "I want to be like you when I grow up. How do I stay strong when people try to bring me down?" David knelt to meet Alex at eye level. "Strength isn't just about standing tall," he said. "It's about knowing who you are and not letting anyone take that from you. Remember, you don't have to fight every battle with your fists. Sometimes, the greatest strength is in walking away or standing firm without saying a word." Alex nodded, his face lighting up with determination. That interaction stayed with David, reminding him of the power of small moments to shape lives. Meanwhile, Bill, true to his word, began making changes in his own life. He distanced himself from Logan and the toxic environment of the biker gang. Bill found work at a local garage, where he discovered a passion for fixing cars. He even joined a community outreach program that helped at-risk youth, sharing his story to steer them away from destructive paths. One afternoon, Bill stopped by David's home, a box of tools in hand. "I thought you might need some help with that truck of yours," Bill said with a sheepish smile. David chuckled, gesturing for Bill to join him. "Sure thing. Let's see if we can get it running smoother." As they worked side by side, a quiet camaraderie grew between them. For David, it was proof that change was possible, even for those who once seemed lost. For Bill, it was a chance to rebuild not just engines, but also bridges he had burned. The changes in the community were subtle yet significant. Maggie's taproom became a gathering place not just for drinks, but for meaningful conversations. A corner of the bar was dedicated to veterans, featuring photos, medals, and notes of gratitude from locals. The bartender, inspired by David's influence, organized monthly storytelling nights where people could share their experiences and learn from one another. David often attended these nights, listening more than speaking. When he did share, his words carried weight. One evening, a young woman named Sarah stood up, her voice trembling as she recounted her struggles with prejudice as a first-generation immigrant. Hearing your story, Mr. Carter, gave me the courage to stand here today, she said. Thank you for showing me that dignity is stronger than hate. David's chest tightened with emotion, but he simply nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. It was moments like these that affirmed his belief in the power of community and the ripple effect of standing firm in one's values. As the years passed, David's presence became a cornerstone of the town. He continued his quiet life, fixing trucks during the day and participating in community events in the evenings. His story, once a singular moment in a small bar, became a beacon of hope and a reminder of the enduring impact one person can have. One crisp autumn morning, David received a letter in the mail. It was from Alex, now a young man preparing to enlist in the military. Dear Mr. Carter, the letter began, I wanted you to know that your words stayed with me all these years. I'm joining the Army, not just to serve my country, but to stand for what's right, just like you taught me. Thank you for being my inspiration. David folded the letter carefully, placing it in the same box where he kept mementos of his own service. He looked out the window, the golden leaves of fall rustling in the breeze. In that moment, he felt a profound sense of peace. His journey wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping changes, but about the quiet strength to make a difference, one step at a time. As the sun rose higher, David picked up his tools and headed to the garage. There was work to be done, and for David Carter, each small act carried the potential to change the world, one person, one moment, one story at a time.